guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my December wrap-up. I typically do 2 wrap-ups in a month because I read so much. I didn't do that this month, and I'm seriously regretting it because ever since the beginning of 2022, I've had 2 wrap-ups because I read at least 30 books a month. Typically around there, and those videos are almost 30 minutes long each, and I don't want to film an hour-long video, but December was absolutely crazy for me. I went on a trip and it was the holiday season, so I just did not have time to film it. So I have 27 books to share with you. I'm not going to talk in length about these whatsoever. I'm not about to be here for an hour. I will try to keep this short and sweet, but I have 27 books, and I actually enjoyed my reading this month a lot. I did read a lot of really good books towards the end of the month. So the beginning I was feeling a bit slumpy. I was trying to read a few things for different projects that I wasn't like absolutely loving, but the rest, I read some new favorites, which shocks me. 2 of my top 15 of the year were in December, so I will go ahead and get to all the books that I read. The first book I read was Wyoming Christmas Stalker by Juno Rushton. This was a Harlequin romance, and I did a video with them, so I read this one and it was really good. It was very romantic suspense. Our heroine, she witnesses a murder happen and she wants to help get to the bottom of it, and the hero's a sheriff and he really is into her, and they try to figure out who murdered this woman, and it took place during Christmas time and they're falling in love. I really enjoyed it. It was short and sweet, very quick. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely want to read more romantic suspense in 2023 and check out more about the Harlequin line because I just really enjoy these. I liked seeing how there was a murder that happened and they're trying to figure out who it was. I don't think too hard when I read mysteries, so typically I'm surprised about who it is. I'm just along for the ride, so when it can just at least surprise me a little bit, which is not hard when it comes to these books, I'm happy. So this one was a lot of fun. I'd recommend checking it out. I thought I owned a physical copy, but I actually don't know where it is. So I read Much Ado About Dukes by Eva Devon. I read a bunch of new historical releases this month, and they were just okay. I feel like I need to give a break to new historical releases unless they're like all-time favorite authors like Joanna Shupe, and go back and read some old historicals because that's really what I'm craving. This one I gave 2.5 stars, and now my problem with also doing these wrap-ups for the entire month is that I'm a little foggy on the details of a book I read a month ago. So they need to get married. He needs a wife and she needs to get married. She wants to get into this like activist club that only men are allowed into. She's like, oh, but if I get married, like I'll be able to get into it. So they get married and like that's it. Like the plot, nothing happened. The plot was so boring and I can't even remember what happened in the plot because literally nothing happened. So I wanted a lot more going on. I feel like a lot of newer historicals are pretty boring plot-wise and more focused on the characters and like the heroines being like standing up to society and like being activists and joining all these societies, and I'm just like, okay, but are you gonna go out and do something? Like I need a lot more plot in my book. So I gave this one 2.5 stars. It was just boring, and I listened to the audiobook and was more so passively listening because I was not invested in the romance or the characters, and it just wasn't for me. Which is sad though because I did actually enjoy book 1. So this one I would skip if you haven't read it yet. The next one though I read. I'm obsessed with this author. It is Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochran. This one is a sapphic Christmas romance, and it was so good. I am a sucker for the trope where it's like we met and hooked up and had an awesome time and then didn't see each other for a year. That's what happened with this one. It's literally been a year. They hooked up on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, like around Christmas time, because they were snowed in and had an amazing day together, and then something happened which is revealed. And let me tell you, I typically don't like it when there's a reveal that we know has been bothering the characters for so long and we don't get to know what it is until like way longer into it. Typically, I'm really disappointed in what the reveal is. I'm like, that's it. This one though, I'm like, that was it? Like, that's what made you like freak out and leave? Wow. It was a really good twist that I really appreciated happening that added a lot more drama to the book. Like, this is messy. Lots of messy characters, but a lot of lovable characters. So they had spent an amazing night together. They went their separate ways though because something happened, and now the one heroine is really not doing well. She's struggling monetarily. She quit or got fired from a job she really liked, and she's an artist. She likes making, I think, these comics that she posts online, and she has no money, and her mom keeps on wanting her money too. And so she is working at this like coffee shop, and the owner of the building comes in, and he's like really rich and flashy, and they get along really well though, so they go out and end up getting really drunk together and agreeing to fake marriage marry each other because he'll get an inheritance and he said you can get a portion of the money and that'll fix all your problems. So they agree to get married. And so it's basically a marriage of convenience, but like kind of fake dating because they're fake being engaged. So they don't really like each other, but they fully intend to get married. And so he's like, well, I need to take you home to my family. So he takes her home, and lo and behold, the woman she has been absolutely obsessed with for the past year that she had a one night with is his sister. Talk about drama, because then we also have a family friend there that the guy she's supposed to marry is still kind of hung up on, and so it's like a love trapezoid is I think what people call this, and then there's a lot of drama going on with his parents at this house too, and I love a messy romance, and this was a messy good time. It was so good, and I was obsessed with the characters and how they really wanted to be together, but the one thought that she was like crushing on her brother's fiance, everything I love. It was Christmas too. 5 stars. Like, read this. This author is now one of my favorites, and I will read anything she writes. So the next one I read is King of Wrath by Anna Huang, another marriage of convenience, but like these people actually like each other and fall in love with each other. So this one, well, okay, they don't really like each other, but they end up liking each other. Our heroine's father ends up telling her, you're going to marry this guy. And this guy is our hero. He is super, super wealthy, and she doesn't want to marry him though. She's like, why would I need to? And so there are things that her dad is hiding from her. She agrees, moves in with him, and they have to like put on face that they really like each other and want to get married, and they really hate each other, but the hero is like, that is my wife, touch her and you die. And I love that trope in here, and it's just basically them falling in love as they are like engaged to one another, even though neither of them really wants to, but she is doing it because her parents want her to, and he is doing it because he's being blackmailed. And so then he has to decide if he really does love her or if he wants to be the cold businessman he still wants to be. Does he? It's hard to explain, but that's what this was. And it was really like all to the plot. I expected a lot more external plot in here, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. And he definitely does have to grovel at the end because he does something to betray her, but I still really had fun reading this. It was just a fun, definitely very spicy, hate to love. He ends up being very, very possessive, which is a lot of Anna Huang heroes anyways, so I had fun reading this. I gave it 4 stars. I did read Anna Huang because I interviewed her on my channel, so if you want to watch that interview, go ahead and check out the link down below. But I read Twisted Hate as well on audio, and this one is Josh and Jules' book, and they definitely really hate each other, but it is their romance. This is definitely like super, super, super spicy and more on the like darker side of spice. I don't know how I want to explain that, but that's definitely what this was, and that's what I typically read. It's clear that they have like a really, really strong attraction to one another, so they start a kind of, the back calls it enemies with benefits situation, where they start sleeping together and not being able to keep their hands off of each other, and I really liked it. I mean, like, it was really long too. Josh is also very dominant, very touch her and you die, and so again, I just really have fun reading Anna Huang's books. I don't think they are for sure like 5-star reads for me, but I have a good time. I enjoyed the characters. I give this one 4 stars. Then I ended up listening to the audiobook of The Naughty, the Nice, and the Nanny by Will and Ash, and this one I gave 3 stars, and I heard this was the best, so I had originally planned on listening to them all on Audible. I do think it's part of the Audible Plus catalog, but this was pretty boring, and I was like, if I'm not gonna like the other ones, I'm just gonna stop. So this one, she needs a job, and she ends up getting a job as a nanny for this guy that she actually knew in high school, and he is a single dad, and it ends up being their romance, and it was boring. I didn't feel a connection between the characters, and so I'm giving it 3 stars. I don't love novellas, and I don't like them, especially if they're just like generic plots, which like your tropes thrown in. So this one just didn't have enough substance and connection between the characters for me, which I needed more of that to like a novella, so I gave this one 3 stars. My problem with this video is I have to go look at my reviews to remember why I didn't like it. I did not love the other woman drama in here. There's drama with the daughter's mom, and I don't like that in books, so that definitely also put me off from this one, so 3 stars. Then I read Anastasia, which I actually forgot. I have a copy back there. Thank you so much to Sophie Lark for sending me an ARC and a physical copy. I love that. Sophie is still one of my absolute favorite authors. Unfortunately, this one I gave 3 stars. I think I hyped myself up way too much for the story because she worked on it for so long. It was going to be a fantasy romance from one of my favorite authors, and I need more adult in my fantasy romances if it's marketed as an adult romance, so I went into this one fully expecting an adult Anastasia retelling, and she is not even 17 or 18 until like really far into the book, like 60 or 70%, and the romance really is not developed until then. And even then, something happens. There is a big twist, and I feel like that took away from a lot of the romance development. I don't want to say how, and I don't want to spoil it, but that twist kind of ruined the romance for me, and I was falling so hard for them as a couple with everything they had to go through in the like from 70 to like 90% was my favorite. That 20% of the book was so action-packed, so full of emotion and romance, and it was the best. But the beginning of the book was all her growing up. She adored her family, all these things happened, and we're really seeing her and how she is the way she is and how the monarchy is how they are in Russia, and her realizing, like, living in her like gilded cage in the castle, how things are different than what all the people are experiencing, how Rasputin sneaks in and really like worms his way into the royal family. And so we see a lot of that, and I'm just someone who needs a lot more romance and excitement in their fantasy romances. Like, if there's not a lot of action and plot moving fast, I get really bored. So I did not love how much time we spent world building in this and building up a family and the characters, and that 20% was perfection. And then I didn't love the end. So I ended up settling on a 3-star. I didn't feel like it was worthy of a 2-star, but I just can't give it a 4-star because I did not love most of the book. So the romance did reach a peak for me, but then it just wasn't enough. So 3 stars, like I said, that does not diminish however I feel about the author. I still love her, and I will still absolutely read all of her books, but I wanted more from this one. Then I read Duke Most Wicked by Lenora Bell. This is one I loved. So this one, our hero, his father hates him. He's hated him ever since he was young. Then something's happened and he learns a secret from his father. And so when his father passes away, he does not care. He's like, I don't care about the dukedom. I'm going to screw around. I'm gonna get with whoever I want to, and I'm going to spend all my money. So he basically ruins his reputation, right? And he realizes pretty later on, his sisters are all growing up. They have a music tutor, and the music tutor is a love interest, and the music teacher. He realizes after hearing some of his friends talk that his sisters are not being taken seriously and will not get good matches in the season. And so he's like, wait a second. So he decides he needs to marry someone wealthy and reputable in order to get good matches for his sisters. And so he takes it upon himself to find all the matches and tell them who they're marrying, and they're like, absolutely not. Some of them don't want to get married. Some of them wanted to have a season, choose who they wanted to marry. One of them thinks she's in love with someone else. And so this really reminded me of the Smythe Smith series by Julia Quinn, with that whole family aspect with the sisters, with the brother who is not having it all together and falling for someone of lower class who he should not be falling for. I had a blast reading this. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Then I did end up reading Girls Before Earls by Anna Bennett. I'm pretty sure Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings really liked this and kind of said it was similar to Spindle Cove by Tessa Dare, because the heroine owns a finishing school that is like by the sea, and so it's very atmospheric, and the hero has to take care of his dead brother's daughter, and there's a lot of animosity in that relationship between him and his brother, and he was like absolutely betrayed by his brother, and now his brother's dead with his wife, so he has to take care of his niece, and she's a bit of a troublemaker, and so he goes to this heroine's boarding school or finishing school, whatever, and is like, I need you to take her. And the heroine has taken on a lot of women, and she really wants to have a reputable school, and she says, well, if I do that, I know she needs family, so you need to visit and you need to be present in her life. And it's their romance. It was really sweet. I ended up giving it 3.5, 4 stars. I did want a little bit more from the plot, and the audiobook though was really good. I probably lean more toward 4 because I really liked the setup. I really liked them falling for each other, and I really loved learning about the hero's damaged past with his relationship with his brother and his brother's wife. It was so good. So definitely a pleasant surprise that I enjoyed. Then we have A Cat Cafe Christmas. This one I was a little disappointed in. I was loving the beginning. She owns a cat cafe. He is a like marketing guy, and he ends up like running into her and offering to help with marketing for the cat cafe, and he's like, I hate cats, and he finds a cat, wants to bring it to her, and she is a vet for the cafe, and she has this whole awkward past. She was dating someone who stole a lot of money from people, and she is like, I'm horrified, but people think she has something to do with it, so she's just trying to lay low, and he finds a cat, and she's like, well, you have to keep him because there's no room for him. And so he's like, what? I'll keep him for a little bit until you can find someone to watch him because it's Christmas time. And so it's their relationship in that sense, but this went on way too long. I remember really not appreciating the third act breakup in this one too, so it was like 4.5 stars as I was reading it because it was so cute and cozy at a cat cafe. She was dealing with her past drama with her ex. He ended up really loving this cat he had, and then it just kept on going. So I lowered my rating to a 3. I really didn't end up loving the end, and it just should have been shorter. Then I did a fantasy romance reading vlog and I read Ledge. This one is written by a TikToker that I follow, so I was excited to read it, but it really felt like a first fantasy someone wrote. It felt like there needed to be a lot more in the pacing that needed to be fixed. So the heroine grew up on this place called the Ledge where they are sacrificed like yearly to these beasts that fly and pick them up and take them. Her sister had died a while ago, and now she is the one taken this time, and it's like a frozen land, and it's really hard for them to survive. So she's taken it to this like kingdom where these flying creatures are and figures out what they do with those people, but then she ends up challenging them and saying, I want a chance to run. So she runs, and this guy that is with all the bad people ends up finding her and running with her, and he has secrets, she has secrets. They run to the actual town where her people had originated from and figures out like why the Ledge exists, and it was like interesting, but I really wanted a lot more development in the romance. It felt like there could have been so much more tension and chemistry between them, and it wasn't really there. And then the final battle scene happened in like 4 pages, and I was like, this is way too easy. How did this happen? I would have liked a lot more fleshed out final battle scene. So I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. Like it was not bad. Then I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, one of my absolute favorite fantasy romances ever, one of my favorite books of the year. This one is so good. Our heroine's human raised by a vampire king, and she enters a tournament, and the hero is one of the vampires in the tournament. He has wings, he flies, he has secrets, she has secrets, they fall in love. It goes from there. I love this one. There's so much more to it, but I don't want to spend too much time on these books because again, I'm not even halfway through. This one is amazing. So much tension between the hero and heroine. I loved it. I love the secrets that were revealed. I loved all the action. So much action and all of the different trials going on. The heroine almost dies like 10 different times. It was so good, and there's a cliffhanger at the end that has me dying, but if you want to read a fantasy romance, read this because it's amazing. The author does have a series she wrote before this that I'm very excited to check out. Then I ended up reading A Lot Like Christmas, and this one was okay. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I am excited to read more from this author though because she writes a lot of Alaska romances, and so this one, our heroine is always the person people date before they find the one. She's at a wedding, I think for like one of her exes who is marrying someone, and she's just like, oh my gosh, like I'm never gonna find the one. And then she sees this guy, I believe she grew up with him because he was her best friend's brother, so he was always a little bit older, but he's back in town because he is on like Doctors Without Borders or something, and it's their romance. It was like nothing special. I wanted a little bit more from it. I've read a different one by her that I like really liked way more than this one, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I listened to it on audio. This one again is one that I was just like listening to get through it, and nothing really stood out to me for the romance. I literally wrote in my review, not memorable. I listened more to pass the time than to figure out what would happen next. It was okay. It wasn't bad, but I just feel like it was just a generic Christmas romance, and the author has done better, so I'll get to that one in a little bit. Then I read Consider Me by Becca Mack. So these next 3 I read while I was visiting Tori in Atlanta. If you are one of my patrons on Patreon, you already saw my reading vlogs for these, but Consider Me, I was very excited. I am definitely in a sports romance mood. I need hockey romances in my life. This one I gave 2 stars. I was on the verge of DNFing it so many times. This was way too long. We had a Playboy hero. He saw this girl at a bar and was like, oh my god, I need you. And she is his friend's best friend. So she's like kind of off limits, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna be with you. And then they end up starting to date and fall head over heels for each other, but I swear it was like 4 separate times the heroine was like, oh my gosh, but you're such a playboy and I can't trust you, and broke up with him like 4 different times. I'm like, we've already had this conversation 4 different times, and I got so frustrated. And this one, and like reading Mile High by Liz Tomford this month, did it so much better. They both had Playboy heroes and heroines who like stood up to the hero and were like, I'm not like other girls, I'm not gonna date you and fall for your charm. Mile High did it 10 times better. Like Mile High is gonna be one of my favorite books of 2023. Like it was amazing. This one, I could not stand the heroine and I could not stand the hero. Everything this book did was so annoying, and like by 50% they were like living together and happy, and I was like, great, we're gonna spend the next 50% breaking up, getting together, breaking up and getting together, and that's what happened, and I was just over it. So people love this book. I didn't. I gave it 2 stars. Then I read Christmas in Quincy by Denny Perry. This is the prequel to the Eden series, and this one I end up giving 4 to 5 stars. It was a very sweet Christmas romance. I wanted a little bit more from it because it's a novella. It's a bodyguard romance. Our heroine is the daughter of a really huge business guy, and so her mother was actually murdered by one of her father's employees, so her father's very, very, very protective and wants her followed and having security. She runs away to the small town of Quincy and stays in Eloise's inn, which we know from the Eden series, and he has to follow her. They've apparently been madly in love this whole time. I would have loved to see a couple of scenes of them before to establish that connection, but then be dropped in and say, oh, but they've really been secretly in love with each other. So that was more like telling, not showing, but more so because it's a novella length, but just giving me like even flashbacks of seeing them pining for each other, and then I would understand that like he would give up anything to be with her. But it was really good. I still like the bodyguard romance aspect, so I gave it 4 stars. So then this one, I do have a physical copy, but I gave it to my mom because I told her she should read it. I read Alaska for Christmas. I read this while I was with Tori. We were both reading at the same time, which was super fun to be like in the same room reading the same book as someone. So this one is a Christmas romance. Our heroine is an adrenaline junkie. She like ice climbs and rock climbs and like cave dives. She does like everything, and she is like a trust fund child. She doesn't have to work. She's super rich, and the hero is someone she clashes with. He is like Mr. Safety, Mr. Rules. He is I don't know if he works for like the Coast Guard, but he is someone who goes out in really dangerous situations to rescue people, and so they clash all the time, and she decides to not listen to the rules about her next trip in a dangerous sport she does. She's going ice climbing, and they cancel it, and she still goes, and she falls, hits her head, and doesn't remember who she is. He has to go out and rescue her, and she's really safe with him, so she keeps on wanting to see him, and he feels conflicted because he's like, we hate each other, but he like really has liked her, and they're falling for each other, but she doesn't know like their past, and it's an amnesia romance. I had so much fun reading this. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. I love a good amnesia romance. I loved how they were dating, and he was like, I'm falling for her, and I really love her, but like, she hates me, but she doesn't know she hates me, and it was really cute. I really enjoyed it. Really unique in what they do as well, so this was a fun read. Then I read a couple more novellas because some of my favorite authors came out with them. I did read Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonham Young, and this was really cute. So I did end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It is a sapphic romance. This was just like, and it was marketed this way, it was very, very low angst. And I'm an angsty reader, and when there's not enough angst, I get a little bored with the romance. So this one was really adorable though. So we have our 2 heroines who have been really close friends for a while. The one knows that she is a lesbian, and she has been in a relationship for like 6 years. She's a teacher. It was with another teacher at school. That teacher, I don't remember if she cheated on her or just, I think she was cheating on her, broke up with her and married a different teacher at school. So she has to see them and work with them. And so she is friends with the other heroine who is for sure that she's straight. She's like, I've never wanted to be in another relationship, but they end up fake dating because the one heroine gets a job at an art gallery, and the owner of the art gallery, who was like a really successful artist, she is queer and did a really, really cool like exhibit with queer art, and the heroine had said something about like bringing a girlfriend, and she meant like a girl who's a friend, but now she's like, oh my god, does she think I meant girlfriend? Will she not like me if she knows that I'm straight? She's like, I need to like fake date you, and the other one wants to fake date her to bring her to the party where her ex is, and so they end up fake dating, but they've always like thought about each other that way. Like the one has had a huge crush on the other friend for a long time, and the other one just thought like those feelings were normal and that she was still straight, and so then they end up falling for each other. And once they fell for each other though, it was pretty much like smooth sailing from there, and I would have liked a little bit more conflict or angst in that romance, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but I really enjoyed it. It was very cute. I really like Hannah Bonham Young, and I'm excited to read more from her. Then I read Visions of You by Catherine Cowles. This one is the novella before her new series coming out. So this one is about this like security company. The heroine is a YouTube musician, and she's getting like really creepy stalkery like messages, and so her friend's brother comes into town. He owns a security company. He's like, I'm gonna protect you, and it goes on from there. Definitely a lot of suspense in here, but because it's a novella, it was like 10 times the speed of her normal book, and I was like, whoa, wait, where are we going? So I did give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but again, like I just need to admit that like I need to stop reading novellas with expectations that they were going to be like full-length books, because this one I wanted a lot more fleshed out, a lot more time on the suspense, but it was over really quickly because it's a novella. But I still really enjoy the setup for the series, and I'm very, very excited to see what this series is all about. Then I read Return of the Duke by Lorraine Heath. This is another new historical that I was just not feeling. This one, again, like the plot just didn't draw me in. It had the potential to be really cool. The hero's father is put to death for conspiring against the queen. So the hero's like, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. I didn't think my dad would do that, but I know he had a mistress and she was seen with him, and I'm gonna track her down. And that's the heroine. She is someone with secrets, and she was not actually like sleeping with his dad. She was not his mistress, but like put up the facade that she was. So they end up having this like tumultuous relationship. They really hate each other, but they have like a really strong attraction. And the last like 100 pages is pretty action-packed. But for some reason, I just did not care about this couple. I did not have this connection to them. I feel like there just wasn't a lot of like of the emotion that Lorraine Heath typically has in her books. I think it might be because they just like hated each other so much, and they were just like, I don't like you, but like I really like you. And so I don't know. I wanted a little bit more. I feel like for like the first 200 pages too, there was not a ton to the plot until we got to wild stuff happening in the plot. So there was just something about this book I can't put my finger on, but I just did not love it like I normally love her books, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I read a really fun book. I read The Lost Elemental by Tessa Hale. I talked about this in my Books I'm Obsessed With video. This one is Why Choose Paranormal, and she grew up thinking she was a normal human, no powers, but she never knew her father. She has a younger brother. She's close with her mom, and they go to their testing ceremony, which every new graduate has to go to every year, and it ends up being she's actually very powerful with many of the elements. So she then is required to go to this boarding school where you learn to control your powers. And so obviously there's a mean girl there who thinks she's the head of the school and she's the most powerful, and she's jealous of her. She just wants to lie low, but the 4 princes at the school are all like princes of each of the elements because they're strong in their elements, and a couple of them are trying to help her out and they really like her, and a couple of them like really hate her and want nothing to do with her, but it's gonna be the romance with all 4 of them. So she's individually like building up these romances with them while learning her powers, and it's a lot of fun. I had so much fun reading this. It's very short. It's on KU. I flew through the ebook because I was reading this during my workouts, so I wanted to be able to read it on my iPad, but I have the physical book that's really pretty, and I'm very excited to continue on. There was like a little bit of a secret that came out at the end too, so I'm excited to see where the story goes. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of Power Plays and Straight A's. I listened to this, I think it was New Year's Eve, doing a puzzle. I listened to it all in one day. So this is a hockey romance, new adult. Our one hero is a hockey player. His twin brother is best friends with the other hero, and so the other hero is in the master's program at the other hero's school, and the brother is like, can you just keep an eye out on him for me? Like, he's not really social. He'll shut himself in his room and not leave and just work on school. So like, just make sure he's okay. And that hero is openly gay. The hockey player hero is openly gay at school, but like not at home. His brother knows, but his parents don't know, and he's like kind of nervous to tell his parents. And so he ends up like running into the studious hero, and he's like, hey, like, you're here. Let me help you, show you around. They spend some more time together, and then they start falling for each other, and it's adorable. I love the dynamic between them and how they communicated with one another and how they spent time together. The hockey player hero was like, I'm gonna show you everything you missed out on being like obsessed with your studies in college, so we're gonna like go to some parties, do all these things together, and it was so cute. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved the dynamic that they had together, and it was just a fun college sports romance, and I really liked also the hockey we got in here, which I always love. But I'm glad I tried the series out, and I'm excited to continue on. Then I read Tough Guy by Rachel Reed, which is another sports romance, but this one was a little boring to me. I just didn't like it, especially because I loved books 1 and 2. This one, the hero is pretty much like the enforcer for his hockey team. Oh, I gave this 2.5 stars. So I didn't really feel a lot with the couple. I did not really feel a connection between the characters. The one character is a musician and the other one's a hockey player. I did like the mental health talk in this because the one hero does have a lot of anxiety. He's like learning to deal with it, and he is the, like I said, the enforcer for his hockey team, and they end up spending time together, but I just didn't really feel a strong connection between the characters, so I didn't really care about the romance or continuing on with the audiobook. I also did not love the narrator, so that might have impacted my enjoyment of the book, but I feel like out of all of them, this one was the most boring plot-wise and relationship-wise, so I gave it 2.5 stars. I was like, I just need to be done with this audiobook so I can move on, especially comparing it to the previous books. This was a bit of a letdown. Then for my Historical Hellions book club, I did read Midnight Rider by Kat Martin. This one I gave 3 stars. It was a Western. He is a vigilante basically that steals from people, and his brother dies in the beginning and they blame her, so they kidnap her, and she is going along for this trip, I guess, and she hates him, but then they start falling for each other. It was like a fun time. Like, there were a lot of funny moments in here, but it was really boring. Not a lot happened. I think that cowboy historicals just aren't for me because they just like hang out. Like, she didn't do anything, especially when she was hanging out at this one place. I don't want to spoil anything, but like she literally sat around for weeks. And I was like, okay, but like do something maybe? Like, no, she didn't. She was very much damsel in distress. I didn't love this one. I was bored by it. The ending was pretty wild too, but it was fun. Like, it was entertaining, but not my favorite, so I gave it 3 stars. So then I read The King of the Court by R.S. Gray. I read this for a reading vlog that came out on Monday. I read Sam from Sam Reads Little's favorite romances that she told me to read, and this one I gave 5 stars. One of my favorite romances of the year, super angsty. The heroine works at a diner and at a cleaning place, and all of her money goes to taking care of her grandmother who has dementia, and the hero is an Olympic basketball player. He's in town for the Olympics. They are training. He meets her, instantly is infatuated with her. They start a relationship and then are torn apart, and that's all I want to say. I love a romance with a time jump. This is what this one had, and I was obsessed. Super angsty, but he is a hero that's like, I will wait till the end of the world for you, and that's what he did. So I love this one so much. 5 stars. You have to read it. Then I read Through His Eyes by Nikki Ash on audio, and I really enjoyed this one. It is an older woman, younger man. Do know in the beginning she is really mentally and emotionally abused by her husband, especially about her weight, so that is like visibly on page. Her husband's cheating on her, he dies, and she's pregnant, and so a few years go by. She's a single mom, and she has a brother who works at a tattoo shop, and the hero is the new tattoo artist, and he is instantly like, I want to get to know you and I want you. And she is like, but I'm so much older than you. You need to back off. Like, I'm a single mom. I have things to do. And he is like, listen, I want you. And I love that trope. There's a little bit of miscommunication at the end, which made me give it 4 out of 5 stars because it was a little bit annoying. It would not have happened if they had just like talked openly to each other. But I love a good hero who goes after what he wants, and I love an older heroine trope, so I did enjoy this one. Then I read Faceoffs and Cheap Shots. This is book 2 to this series. So this one I also listened to in a day while I was actually cleaning my library. These are pretty short. This one, they are co-captains. They're 2 players on the same team, and they are competing to be captain. One has taken it seriously this whole time, wanting to be captain. The other one really doesn't care about hockey. He's just here for a good time, and they are going against each other to be captain. And so I give this one 3.5 stars. I typically love when they're teammates, but I don't know, I just wanted a little bit more between them, especially because they were like antagonizing each other, and then like had to do a bet where they were kissing each other and had to like, the one who pulled away last won, and they just like played all these antics together, and then they ended up kind of covering for each other when they could have like gotten the other one in trouble in order to get the captainship, and like that's really all it focused on. I would have loved like other things to happen in the plot other than this like challenge between them, and so that's why I gave it more 3.5 stars, but I still really enjoyed the romance. I love hockey romances right now, so that's all I want to read, and the series is fun, so I will definitely continue on to read book 3. And my last book apparently of 2023 was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. This one is book 2. I did reread book 1 in November. This one I will start out by saying I was spoiled by the twist at the end. So I do think because I didn't have that shock value, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I wanted a little bit more at the end. I wanted more on the line. I wanted more action and suspense, but we only got like 40 pages of it. Book 1, the last like 100 pages, I was sobbing, I was freaking out, I was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? This one, I'm just like reading along. I liked how we got perspectives of multiple characters. I liked seeing all these things develop, more secrets come out, but it was just like all that same pace until like 40 pages to the end. So I had 760 pages of this like moving along, figure things out, following different characters, and then we finally get stuff happening at the very end. I would have liked just a lot more action and like things on the line than what we ended up getting. So I still really enjoyed the characters. I still really enjoyed the book. So I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. And that is my December wrap up. Hopefully this is not too long. I've been in here forever, but let me know if you read any of these and what your thoughts are or what you read in December. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.